So, we are tonight going to be covering how to share news on your kiddos or adults' device on AAC. I'm Susan Norwell, Educational Specialist, co-founder of Rett University. Welcome. And with me tonight is...
Hi guys, I'm Courtney Barnum. I am an educational specialist with Rett University and a prior special ed teacher and a sibling of a woman who had Rett syndrome.
And Lizzie.
With us, sorry.
And I'm Lizzie Heinmiller. I'm a speech language pathologist and training coordinator for Rett University.
And we are so happy to have Lizzie with us. It's so cool to have a speech therapist who really gets it as part of our team. And has in just a little bit of time already had a big impact on what we are doing. So Lizzie, thank you so much.
Very much so.
Okay, so now you have to move the slides.
I know.
You're in charge. All right, go ahead. You do this one because I love this and you found it, so you should tell it.
Okay, so we are all storytellers. We all live in a network of stories. There isn't a stronger connection between people than storytelling. And I think about telling news is a form of storytelling. When our girls are telling us information and sharing information with us, that's their way of storytelling. That's their way of telling us what's going on. So this includes retelling things that have happened to them or stories that they have read. This includes things that are going to happen in the future. What is happening right now in their lives? The other thing it also does is it helps create connections and friendships. It helps to tell people what is happening in their world. Over the years of working with our girls, I've had clients come in and tell me about their skiing adventures or their water skiing adventures or what happened at school that day or what they did that weekend or something that their sibling did or all of those different things. It is a way to create connections for our kids, and it is so important for our kids to be able to tell that news.
What's essential is the fact that retelling a story is about something that happened or about something that's going to happen. What we tend to do is we tend to stay with AAC users in the here and now. If we never talk to them about what's coming up, or we talk to them about what has happened using their device to model, how are they going to know that they're supposed to be doing that? So I can remember with my kids when they were little or with my grandkids now, as I'll say, oh, you were at school. I'm wondering what you did at school today. And even if they didn't tell me anything and they just started laughing, I'd say, well, it looks like you had a good time at school. But if nobody talks to them about things we did, like we sit down and talk about how we went to the park and, oh my gosh, it was so fun seeing you swing on the swings. Or talking about we're going to be doing this and this is what's going to happen. So I think we have to, as modelers, have to be conscious of using the past, the present, as well as the future, and not just stay in the present.
Right. Very much so.
I keep looking on the slides thinking that I'm going to move them, and I'm not, because I'm not in charge. All right. So sharing news is an important part of communication. We do not want our people to be only asked WH questions. They would be a very boring dinner partner if that's all that they were able to do was answer questions. So how do we teach sharing news? We model, we share context initially, like we share what's going on. We use time words. We actually have a webinar, either a webinar, or is it a course? I can't remember. It might be both. Something happened. How we use time words. Something happened, something's happening, something is going to happen. Next, first, last, yesterday. All of those words need to be taught in the context of talking about things, not sitting at a chalkboard saying, okay, what number of the date was yesterday? What number of the day is tomorrow? That's not the context kids need when we're talking about time words. I mean, it's one context, but very limited. Retelling stories from stories read or read independently is great because you have a shared context. It's really hard for kids to start learning to share news when we don't know what they did because we can't scaffold it to help them. So it's really important that in the beginning, we're really talking about a shared context, something we did together, something we read together, something we're going to do together. And so on our devices, we're putting news pages and we're putting story pages so they're easy to access and easy to use to retell so they don't have to do it word by word, which is a lot of work.
So modeling, and again, I'm always going to put in those parentheses, without expectation. I go in when I see my girls after maybe a weekend or after something has happened. I go in and I model, oh, this weekend I went kayaking a couple of weeks ago. I went kayaking with some friends and we saw manatees and we saw an alligator, which we don't normally, but even though I live in Florida, we don't always see alligators when we go kayaking. And so I was telling my girls about it. I was using that something happened page and saying, I used the something happened button and I used our My News pages and I retold my weekend. So I modeled it without expectation of them giving it back to me. But as we continue to do that and as they continue seeing us do it, they're going to start doing it with them. So we want to share news about what the family's been doing. If you guys went somewhere over the weekend, come back and talk about it with your kiddo and model retelling it with the whole family. What the plan for the day is. I know some of our kiddos and people, my sister, for example, if we were off schedule, it did bother her a little bit because she was kind of used to her schedule. And so kind of going, okay, this is what we've got going on in the plan for the day. Talk about your day. If you are at work or the kids are at school all day, come home and tell your kids about it. Have siblings talk about their day at school. Use the My News pages. Have fun with it though. Don't make it oh my gosh, I have to do this perfection, because we don't do perfection. The point is to model the language and just make sure that at first we're no expectation of the retelling. Then as we've been doing it for a while, we want to see if maybe they can help with the retelling, that they can start kind of doing it themselves. But we want to start at first with that no expectation.
So we use time words, and there it is. There's the link to our YouTube about it. It's a free webinar on how to use time words. They're on our pages in Snap, and we have yet to do this because it's my fault. We haven't done it yet in Grid, but I will. We have them in the Snap pages, talking about something happens, something's happening, something's going to happen. And they're under the personal page so that they can go in there really easily and retell a story and use it as a way to gain attention, which I think is a good thing, because when you really think about it, we don't sit down at a table with friends and answer WH questions. What we do basically is we tell little mini stories that people react to. And so when we show you our pages, you're going to see that on the pages where they can start telling about news, they also have a way to comment on it so that it's right all together. They don't even have to navigate too many places away to be able to tell what's going on.
Right.
We're making it easy because it's social. Social should be easy.
Yes. So this is my client, Dallas, and Dallas just turned 5, so she was still 4 at this time. But we have been I've been modeling with her. We're still kind of at that no expectation. But she decided she wanted to let me know. Now, this is just using basic words and stuff like that. She wanted to retell something that happened. And you can see at the end of it her excitement of her getting her point across.
Yeah. I.
Have I, or I have. Sorry, I hit the button. I'll wait for you to finish your sentence.
It's harder than it looks, eh?
You have something? Amber, stop. Having.
I'm going to wait for you to finish your sentence.
Gone.
Stopped everywhere. You've stopped everywhere when you're gone?
Are you maybe talking about yesterday? We were gone a lot yesterday and we went everywhere.
Is Miss Dallas, is that what you're talking about? She's like, oh, just thinking about it makes me tired. Miss Dallas, is that what you're telling me? Is that you had to go a lot of different places yesterday? Yes or no? Thank you for getting yes. Oh my gosh, you got your eyes back to middle and then you came back and said yes. So you're like, Courtney. So I'm going to.
Yeah, we did.
You're like, Courtney, I'm going to help you. I'm going to say yesterday. I'm going to pause you again so I can say it. Yesterday, I had to go. I had to go. I always forget where everywhere is.
On your little words.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. We
You
did not stop.
stop.
Thank you. Yeah, that was what you told me. Miss, can I, so as you can see, she took some words and put them into her place of, this is like, we had to go everywhere and stuff. And then I took it at the end and retold it in a way, so using those time words so she could see that correct, phrasing of it. But she was so excited that her point had gotten across and she was able to retell. She's just turning 5 and she's using her device, and like when she goes, she's one who her dad made her a special seat to go roller skating, and she loves it. And so they go almost every weekend. And so after I see her, like after they're skating, she's getting better about, that's her thing that she loves to retell about. And now we're going to start using, now that we've got the stories pages on it, we're going to start using those to retell.
You know what? And look how intuitive Mom was to put it all together.
Right.
That's the piece that, we can lay the seed for that and we can model it. But when the parent picks it up and then really sees what that's about, it's like so cool. It's so cool. You can practice by retelling stories read to them or stories read to them that they've read independently. That's how I started with a lot of my kids, is we just, model while we're reading, so we're retelling as we tell, use the something happened, use the time words, retell as you go, give them space by being silent every once in a while so they can throw in a word, talk about what happened first, next, and last. I will tell you, my teenagers are really getting into this. You can see the kids that have been on their devices a while. I had a girl, one of my girls in France, okay, so she's speaking, or in Switzerland, she's speaking French, told me that there was a big loud argument about her dad, and her mom said, oh, yeah. And then she went to the verb page and went to smoke. And I'm like, okay, this is the story I always tell when speech therapists want to take buttons off. And I smoke, and she said, and the mom went, oh, yeah, that's right. The kids were all yelling at Guy because he won't quit smoking. And so, when you think about the button on their smoke, would that be the button that you would be most likely to remove thinking nobody's ever going to use it, right? But guess what? That was her story.
And here's
the thing. Really great.
Here's the thing, too, Susan, is one of the things that we've been talking about is when I'm retelling with my girls, using words, because not every word is on their device. And so what are words that we can reuse or we can use to maybe replace a word that's not on their device? And so, like Leaf said, argument, loud, using those words to retell. And it's taking a moment to think about what they're talking about and what words they're using.
Oh, yeah, it was hysterical. It was so funny. I loved it. I just clicked this thing for you, but it didn't move. All right. So this was when I was first really getting into constructing narratives with kids. And this was just like so organic, the way it all happened. So go ahead. Wow. So here's what I was thinking. We just
Go back to the home page.
Music.
I want to talk with you.
We can talk about it a little while before we play a little more music. She was getting a little tired just before you came, so we decided we'd do a little bit of music. She's read 2 books. Whoa. Talked up a storm. Wow. Answered questions.
Let me tell you what I think.
All right, you tell me what you think about my music.
Something happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it was very good. It was. She's telling you something happened.
Wow.
And it was very good, and wow.
I love it.
Yes. Do you know what? Maybe we should tell her what happened. Let's see if we can tell her what happened. Let's make a story and tell her what happened. So you can decide if you want to tell her about way down deep in the deep blue sea. So, partly the reason I created those reading pages is to talk about the past, present, future, and stories, but it's also to model how we would start a narrative. That was absolutely amazing. that she said something happened and it was wow, and then looked right at you, because that was Oakland's way of starting to say, hey, I got to tell you something happened and it was great. That's the beginning of being able to construct a narrative. Constructing narratives is what we all do. We don't sit at the table and label things. We don't sit at the table and talk about the food we're eating ad nauseum. We don't. We tell short little stories of things that have happened to us. Creating narratives for kids that use AAC is really challenging. But if we set up the devices right and we work toward it, I've been doing a ton of reading about this, just all the research, and there's a couple of really good research studies out where I've been taking the ideas and applying them to my girls to practice, and they're really starting to say, something happened, and they're putting all of what they can together, and then usually I can make sense out of it, but if I can't, I go, okay, I'm going to write down all these pieces. Do you have anything to add? No. And then when Mom comes in, she goes, oh yeah, she did this, she did this, she did this. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're really constructing a narrative. So, do you want to, Renee, right? Renee?
Yes.
Do you want to tell Renee about Deep Blue Sea or about Gruffalo's Child?
This is
Gruffalo's Child. You want to tell her about Gruffalo's Child. And
I
there
have
was
something
something
else to say.
about Gruffalo's Child.
I
You
want to
talk. I know. Quick
Quick talk.
talk. There was something in the Gruffalo
I'm sorry.
Child.
I'm sorry.
Right, you felt
Please.
sorry for somebody, didn't you?
Thanks.
You're welcome. I think there was a part of the Gruffalo's Child that was kind of funny.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks.
So we could do the
Just joking.
just joking part, or we could go to the. Okay. So keep going. So I'll show the next. You'll show the next one. You see this build. Oh, she wanted to tell you about the just joking part.
Okay, cool.
There was somebody that was joking in this story. Is that right? That's what you want to tell? Okay. So now we have to figure out who you want to
Just
tell
joking.
about. Right.
Good job.
There was a
Oakland.
please. Okay. So there was a just joking part. You're right. Oh, go ahead.
I know.
You know. Okay. You know about this just joking part. Let's find out who was just joking. Whoops, so sorry. I showed you the Gruffalo's Child, not the Gruffalo. Who was just joking? Was the mouse just joking? Tell Renee. It was the
Oh
mouse
my
that was
gosh.
just
Wow.
joking, Renee. And you're going to have to read
I like
this
that.
story. And she loved it. That's right. She
I
liked
can't wait
it.
to hear more.
She liked that the Gruffalo got fooled by the mouse who was just joking. He was just joking. Yes,
That's
it was
funny.
so funny. Actually, that
I have something else to say.
Oh, what else?
That was me.
Oh.
That was wonderful.
Let me tell you what I think.
So Oakland, Renee was thinking that the story was very funny.
That's funny.
Mm. What do you think? What you want to tell her, I can tell you're looking at her so
Tell me.
excitedly.
I think
What
that was
do you
pretty
want
funny.
to tell her? No, we'll wait for you. We will definitely wait.
Wow.
I saw your eyes on the
Way to go.
way to go. Is that what you wanted to tell us? Was the way to go? You were rooting for somebody in this book. And you kept saying, way to go.
Way to go.
Who were we rooting for? Who did we
Way to
say
go.
way to go? Way to go for the, oh dear. Way to go for the mouse or the Gruffalo? Way to go for the mouse?
Was it the mouse?
Holy Bruce. Yes, yes, it was a way to go for the mouse. Absolutely. We said, way to go, mouse. You fooled that Gruffalo. And so, what she got a chance to do here is I think she used every single part of herself. She used her device. She used her yes, no. She used her affect. She used her body. She used her head nod. She used so many things to be a part of that interaction. This was the first time I had seen her. This wasn't like a long-standing client that I had, and it was just kind of a wonderful, like I said, just totally organic. It just wasn't anything I'd planned, and we just started chatting, and she just started adding, and that's what it looks like in the beginning. It's kind of messy, and that's when, I mean, communication is messy. And if it's too neat and tidy, you're not doing it right. That's what I mean. Get rid of the perfectionist thing and just kind of go with the flow. And these are like this page on the right, upper right with the stars is my original page done in Communicator back in, it's got to be 12 years ago, 13, 14 years ago. I mean, before Rett U even, I would have been using that page set. And that's a retell of the Gruffalo that I did with another kiddo who just told me different things that she wanted. And then I put pictures in, and she had a whole series of these things on her device so she could get to them anytime she wanted and to retell the story. Then we kind of modernized things. If you see below it, a speech therapist took this from one of my kids that I'd seen since she was 2, and she was tooling around on her device and found the pages with the stars and everything and said, she's a teenager now. I need to kind of make it a little more mature. Do you mind if I adapt it? I said, oh gosh, go ahead. And so now we've got home news and we've got school news. They don't even put in pictures unless they feel like it because, sometimes there's not time. This is done in Snap. The other one's done in Communicator. All you have to do in Snap is put the button in edit and just type in what you want it to say. And so that's a teenager that has those pages and doing great. And then we took a look at, well, you want to explain the top page on the left.
Yeah, so the top page on the left is our new personal page adapted. So as you can see, we've made some changes to it, but we come right over here and we've got something happen, something is happening, something is going to happen. They've also got their I am, you are, and I think that leads straight to, green and red descriptors as well as feelings so that they can be like something happened. And I think that's, whatever they want to say about it. And then they can come over here into their My News button. And again, instead of having to find everything, each word, there are times, when our bodies are just not working correctly or things like that, we want them to, or if they're talking, especially in a social situation, we want them to be able to move as easily as possible so that they can get as much information out. So to be able to go to their news page and say, hey, Courtney, hey, friends, I went to, and go over here to places and say, I went to the zoo. It was, or I saw, and then they can go over to all words list and go into animals and talk about what animals they saw. I think, and they can fill in something about that, or it was fun, or it was stinky, or it was hot, or whatever they want to say about it. But this is all right here that it's quick, it's a little bit quicker for them to be able to tell us about what's going on or tell their friends about it, which when they're talking with their peers, we want them to have that quick and easy as possible. With Rett syndrome and apraxia and motor planning and everything else, we want this to be as easy as possible for them.
And then the story buttons links over. I missed an arrow. I needed an arrow going over to those pages.
This
so then
links to here.
Yeah, you can very easily now navigate. And for some of my kids, I even fill in the it was, and I fill in the I think, and then if they want to add things to it, they can. Right. But what's been happening is that they actually, so I have a girl who sometimes can be a stinker, and sometimes that's what I put in her buttons about how she did with her work. But she goes home and she only hits the buttons that have the good news in it, and she leaves off all the information about the stuff when she was a stinker. That's pretty clever. But she also now has started to go into her classroom and share her news with her teacher and share her news with the other peers. That's a huge change for somebody who wasn't doing any of that until this year in 5th grade. So it takes time. I think we're always in a hurry, and people say, I just want to know what they're thinking. Well, it takes time for them to organize what we're giving them and then get good at using it. And it doesn't mean they're not thinking about things. It's just the access that's learning the access slows them down.
Well, and I
really.
think too with that too is learning how to clarify. Lizzie and I share a client who she'll say some things, and you have to kind of take her and say, okay, I'm going to pause you for a second. Let me clarify and make sure I'm understanding you correctly. And she will let you know if you are clarifying what she's saying correctly. And if you're not, she will let you know. And I've had that with some of my other girls because, as I say sometimes to our parents, we have to kind of read between the lines because they might have some extra words in there, but usually they're trying to get a point across. And it's not always in perfect order. And so taking that moment to say, hey, can we clarify this? And let me make sure I'm hearing you correctly, because what you have to say is very important. And
right. You're valuable. What you say is valuable. Right. And listen, that's how neurotypical kids learn to tell you something. They learn. The reason I started this to begin with is I'm in the car with my 18-month-old, my very first granddaughter, 18-month-old in the back seat. My husband leaves the car to go in the grocery store. And she is in the back seat going, ah. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, I'm trying to think of all these things, right? I'm like failing miserably, and she's crying. And my husband gets in the car, and she goes, and she goes, oh, we were playing that game yesterday. Every time she did it, I honked the horn. Now, I didn't have a shared context, but I'm thinking to myself, at 18 months, she was using her gestures and her sounds that she can easily make to try and retell an experience with my husband. How can I help my kids that I work with to do that? Because they don't have gestures.
Right.
They don't have words or sounds. And that's what started me on this kick to begin with. So I'm forever grateful for the and her screaming and having a fit in the car.
And
so.
I will tell you, with working with our kids, the amount of times I see them when they can tell us something, or when they can share something and you get it, it is so exciting for them. It's exciting for us, but it's so exciting for them because they're like, oh my gosh, you heard me. All right, Susan, we got one more?
Okay, so this is Jackie, and what we started doing is just having her talk about our session. Like, what did you like in the session? What didn't you like in the session? And this she just didn't like what I did. So anyway. And then she could go back to her news. All right, so you get to decide what you want to write about. You have something else to say. Do you want to talk about something?
Did you like it?
Okay, I will ask you. Did you like... Let me write it on a piece of paper so Mommy can put it in.
Tell me more.
All right.
Tell me more.
Did you like Knuckle Bunny 2 or Making Rhyming? Oh, you did? We should write about Knuckle Bunny 2? We can write about it. You can tell us it stinks. You decide. All right, so we're going to write about Knuckle Bunny 2.
It was boring. It
Okay.
was boring.
All
It
right.
was boring.
All
It
right.
was boring.
All right.
It was boring.
So,
It was boring.
okay.
It was boring.
All right.
It was boring.
It was so boring. It was so boring. Should I put down that Susan really liked it? Should I put down that Susan liked it? But I thought, yes. Okay, so we can put down Susan likes it, but I think it's really boring. Except for the beginning, middle, or end. Okay, so Rett, I'm going to give it to you slowly now. Except for the beginning. No. Except for the middle. No. Except for the end. Oh, yes, got it. Okay, except for the end. Watch where she goes. Except for the end, where they were...
It was boring.
It was boring. I know. The book was boring, except for the end, because at the end, they learned how to share. Just like your news. Just like who? Learn to share like, yes! Just like Llama Llama. Except at the end where they share like Llama Llama. So there she is, all right, doing a text-to-text comparison. Do you want me to go in and make a duplicate?
And that's something to do as well with when we're reading and stuff like that, making those text to text connections, modeling that things. Just like if you walk into a typical classroom, the typical teacher is standing up there modeling, thinking aloud, and making text to text connections and things like that. They are teaching the typical students how to do that. We have to do that same thing with our kids. And it's so much fun when they start getting it and they start making, we were talking with when they make those connections. We were working with one of our kiddos the other week, and we were getting ready to read animal costumes. And we were talking about what things we could put, what things animals could wear. And I talked about a gorilla wearing a tie, and she went and said, nephew, Lizzie, what else did she say?
Nephew in the city.
Nephew in the city. And then I think, because I put hat and tie, and here she was making a connection to the movie Sing, where the gorilla is in the city wearing the hat and tie. And so, a great way to, when they can make those connections between books that they've read, movies they've watched, things that have happened to themselves, making those, text to self connections is huge. Especially, I think, I've always found it important for our typical kids, but I think for our kids it's even more important because it helps them realize that there's more out there. So, go ahead, Susan.
I just find that all the connections and all of them being able to put things together really shows their intelligence and their abilities. And what I think about often is that not given the pathway to say that or the pathway to experience that must feel really suffocating to them. Like, I've got all these ideas in my head. It reminds me of the book Out of My Mind.
Yes.
Where you're kind of hearing it from what it's like to be nonverbal and having all these thoughts and no way to get it out before she ever gets a device. And so I also feel like, wouldn't that be amazing if you're having this connection to something, but you can't get out how to tell somebody you got it?
Yeah.
And the thing about designing a language set or adapting a language set is that you try to make it as easy as possible for them to do that while maintaining the integrity of the language system. That's the challenge. You don't want to change the core words that have had all this research, but you can have these little sidebar things going on that they can link out to that help them use the words that are there, but they're closely snugged around that social aspect to make it a little bit easier. But I do think that storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world today.
I agree.
So why don't you read the other quote?
I found these two as I was looking for things, because I'm always trying to find good, quotes to go with it. And I found these two. And the first one I actually found was that teaching is listening, learning is talking. And I really thought about that with our kids and how much, again, going back to storytelling and telling news, that they're learning through talk. And our girls and boys have to find different ways, have to find ways to do that with their device, and we have to help them with that. And then this other one just popped up underneath it, and I was like, oh, I really like that. There's a radical and wonderful new idea here that all children could and should be inventors of their own theories, critics of other people's ideas, analyzers of evidence, and makers of their own personal marks on the world. It's an idea with revolutionary implications if we take it seriously. And I think about our kids. And again, going back to my own history with Rett syndrome and my sister and the opportunities that weren't there for her because of her age and things like that and when she was born. And now I look at our girls, and that our girls are becoming, and boys are becoming their own inventors of their theories, and they're getting that information and now starting to be able to share it. And my girls, because I have mostly girls on my client list right now, they put me in my place so many times, and I absolutely love it because I love seeing them make their own personal marks on the world. And I think our girls and boys are going to continue making serious marks on our worlds. So,
Amen. There we go.
If you have any more questions, or if there's areas or subjects that we've not covered, we are here to support. Please email us. You can email us at Susan Norwell. All of our emails are there. I'm not going to read them all off. And we are happy to support and try to get as much information out for you guys. So please let us know what we can do to support you. Do we have any questions before we end for the day? Evening, yeah.
Boy, this has been a long day.
It's been a long day.
But if you're not comfortable saying them out loud, you can always email us, and we're good at answering emails.
Thank you for being patient with us with our little technical snafu, and we will see you guys next month for our next web chat.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.